in studio. Greg Wrubell, voice of Brigham Young Athletics, joins us now on 365 Sports. Notre Dame this week. It's been a really good schedule for Brigham Young. That win against Baylor, the loss to Oregon, and there's still Arkansas around the corner. Greg, how much does a game like this maybe set up Brigham Young for something special if they can get through Notre Dame?
Well, when the season opened, I thought there were 4 show-me games for BYU this year. They've already played 2 of them back-to-back. The Baylor home game, the Oregon away game. They got Baylor in Provo, didn't show well, lost at Oregon in Eugene. Of course, the Ducks have some pretty remarkable, home win streaks going in conference, out of conference. Either way, they lose that game. Comes down to the last 2 show-me games. Notre Dame in Vegas, Arkansas at home. Then you've got Liberty, ECU, Boise, Utah Tech, and Stanford. These are really the last 2 opportunities for BYU to really put itself into a conversation that relates to the primetime postseason. And these games are games that BYU has to win to get into that conversation. I think a split doesn't do it. Once you get to 2 losses and you're an FBS independent, it's tough to even think about New Year's Six at that point. If you stay at 1 loss with the schedule BYU has, they could be in that mix by the end of the year, but it pretty much means running the table. I think anything other than that, and the Cougs drop into simply trying to get to 6 wins and get to a postseason game somewhere. So these are massive games for BYU, and it's an NBC coast-to-coast opportunity at Allegiant Stadium Saturday night. A great opportunity for BYU. Notre Dame opened in the top 5 in the preseason. Lost 2 games, quickly fell out. They're 2-2 now, but it's still Notre Dame. That's a valuable win, and then Arkansas at home kind of speaks for itself. But 2 huge weeks for BYU in terms of a springboard.
So from BYU's perspective, looking at Notre Dame, they have to obviously look at them as the Notre Dame who just beat North Carolina. But overall, where are they? I mean, what kind of matchup is it going to be for Notre Dame? I know that Marcus Freeman's got a pretty physical defense, but seems like there's not as much experience coming back there as there would be at BYU right now.
And they're working on a new starting quarterback. He'll get his first, his first true away start was the North Carolina game. He'll get a neutral game now in Vegas. So Pine's the new QB. The defense is the only defense in America without multiple takeaways. And BYU conversely doesn't give the ball away. BYU has had 1 giveaway all season, and it came in the season opener. So BYU for the first now, my football history goes back to 1972, Lavelle Edwards' first season. Dating back to 1972, BYU never had 4 consecutive games with no giveaways. Well, they're on a 4-game streak right now with no giveaways since that pick in the end zone at South Florida. That was a month ago. So you play a month of turnover-free football, you're going to give yourself a shot. And that's what BYU's been doing. And conversely, and again, Notre Dame has not been specializing in ball hawking right now.
Greg, going back to the Oregon game, their only loss that came right after Baylor. Obviously, there's a lot of emotions in that Baylor game. Turn right around, have to go up to Eugene. What kind of went wrong up there? I know that there was, certainly the second and third quarter in terms of the bracketing of halftime. Oregon had a boatload of points, but what kind of went down? Was that an energy dump? What'd you think?
Yeah, Oregon owned the middle late. There's no doubt about that. That was a big part of the win. I thought that BYU lost its edge, and I'd argue that the last game BYU really played with an edge for 60 minutes was the Baylor game. Even though it was low scoring and kind of a slugfest, I felt BYU was fully engaged defensively in that game. Even when the offense wasn't really clicking yet, I thought the defense was right there with one of the best teams in the country. And so that I thought was the last true edge game for BYU. For whatever reason, and you would never look past Oregon in Eugene. It wasn't a matter of looking past, but the coaches felt that when the game began, the Cougs weren't right there. And there were a lot of sloppiness issues in the early part of that game, whether it was, drop balls or penalties, just a lack of sharpness. And if you're not sharp against the fast Oregon team playing at home, you could be behind the 8 ball, and BYU certainly was there. So I think having Notre Dame on the schedule might actually be a good thing for BYU. Being an underdog might be a good thing for BYU because they just played 2 games where they failed to cover on spreads between 21 and 25 points against Wyoming and Utah State. BYU won those games without playing at their best, playing really kind of one good half and one so-so half of football. But I think the situation this weekend actually does set up well for BYU, being a national stage, being an underdog, and looking to regain what got them into the national conversation by beating Baylor back in early September.
Jaren Hall is obviously really, really good, not just as a college quarterback, but what he might be in the future. But right now, Brigham Young's worried about where he is now. Very savvy, can make plays with his feet. He's also very, very smart with how he handles and takes care of the football. Doesn't he have a streak going right now? I don't want to jinx him, where he's on a pretty good run without throwing a pick.
144 consecutive pass attempts without throwing a pick. And that's only his second longest streak at BYU. He's got a 163 in there as well. He's the only quarterback in BYU history with 3 separate INT-free streaks of 100-plus pass attempts. He had a 111 or 117 as well back in there, too. So that is his hallmark, no pun intended. And he is not just careful, he's productive. Like he doesn't just mince it around and take the unders and throw in the flats. He will take shots. He is not shy, yet he's still incredibly careful and incredibly efficient. And he's doing it without the top 2 receiving weapons that BYU had coming into the season, Gunnar Romney and Puka Nacua. They've still yet to be on the field together at any point this season. They got Gunnar back last week for the first time in his first game back after a lacerated kidney, but Puka Nacua is still on the sideline. So when those 2 guys get back, and hopefully it's this weekend, they play together for the first time, Jaren has more of his full complement of an arsenal to work with.
Is Puka trending in that direction?
Yeah, they kept him out of the Utah State game with the hope that was on a short week. So that was last Thursday already. The hope that he'd be ready for Notre Dame if they gave him a little bit of extra time. But he got hurt in camp, got in, gets hurt early in the regular season, comes back, gets hurt again, goes out again. It's just been so tough for him to play consecutive games, and it's kind of been a thing for him. Some guys just have a tough time staying on the field, and Puka's been one of those guys to this point. The hope is when they do get him back, it's for a longer stretch.
One of the guys on the chat room is a Brigham Young fan, mentioned that right now, and I'm just asking you, obviously, we paid a lot of attention to Brigham Young and still have, because they're about to be a part of the same conference. But have they struggled stopping the run? Is that one of the issues? They're not running the ball as well as they need to, and also on the opposite side, stopping the run?
Yeah, and the yards per rush allowed numbers aren't the worst. They're roughly in that middle third nationally of yards per rush against, but teams love to run against BYU, so the yards per game number climbs up a little bit, and they're ranked in the 90s in rush yards per game against. But the yard per rush number, it you can work with it, but it seems that teams, once they sense a weakness, have gone to it rather consistently. But I will note that it's been predominantly a first half phenomenon against the lesser teams BYU's played. The Cougs have made some very nice halftime adjustments to kind of shut down teams, and Wyoming and Utah State are 2 of them that have a lot of success in the first half and much less after halftime. So, yeah, I think they want to see the rush numbers pick up a little bit, drop that yards per rush again. But it hasn't been a killer to this point. But these, again, were lesser teams. I think if you get a team, like Notre Dame that gets on a roll, and now North Carolina's rush defense is not great, but Notre Dame still ran it for nearly 300 yards against the Tar Heels on their home field, and that would not be a formula that BYU would look at as amenable to victory for sure.
Greg, there was the story last fall around this time, even earlier than this time, when Brigham Young, Houston, Cincinnati, and also UCF were going to join the Big 12. It seems like forever ago. There's also been changes since that time, but I know that's on the back burner because of what's going on this week or this season. But can you count it down almost, the excitement of being a part of the Big 12 very soon?
Yeah, and I'm waiting for that schedule release.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's October, November, December. I think it's been as late as December in the past. But in the weeks to come, we're going to see a 2023 Big 12 football schedule with BYU's name on it, and that's kind of the next benchmark, the next milestone date is actually seeing something come out of the Big 12 office with BYU and dates and opponents in the Big 12. That is the next big, kind of the next big thing to occur to make this thing more of a reality. And so that's what I'm kind of anticipating.
Do you have a spot you want to go to in year one for sure?
Well, I'm trying to think of basically it would be venues I've not been to in the past, right? So we're going to take out Waco. We're going to take out Austin. We're going to take out Houston. We're going to take out Orlando. We're going to take out Cincinnati. So all the new schools I've visited before. It's places that BYU's not been before. So, places like Stillwater and Lawrence, Kansas. Those are the kinds of things that and even Norman, for example. They've not played there. So hopefully the places BYU's not been to before, hopefully there's a good sprinkling of those in that first schedule.
Do you think that even though it's exciting to be a part of the conference, whatever conference it would have been, not just the Big 12, but is there going to be a part of your schedule, you think, Greg, where you miss that independence of playing games like Notre Dame and Vegas, or do you think that there will still be games like that in their non-conference schedule?
I think the future formula will follow a G5, P5, FCS, kind of rotation every year. I think you'll have your 9 Big 12 games. You'll play a G5 home or away. You'll play an FCS home and a P5 home or away. And that'll be kind of the formula for BYU. I think we'll already kind of see that develop in seasons to come. But I don't think there will be a real nostalgia for independence at all. I think it was an interesting and enjoyable 12-year run of kind of globetrotting and playing at different places and taking your team to in front of parts of the fan base that wouldn't normally get to see you. But I think it'll be much more exciting to settle into a rivalry situation and contending for conference championships and getting a sense of routine in a league like the Big 12. Independence was fun. BYU made the most of it, but I think it doesn't compete with being in a league, having compatriots, contesting a similar goal, all those kinds of things. And so I'm personally looking forward to the novelty of getting to these venues again I've never seen before in a conference setting. And so that to me trumps everything. Yeah,
and it seems like those who are going to remain, the 8 remaining teams, have opened up their arms to those coming in. And Brigham Young probably right there at the top of the list. Thank you very much for your time, Greg. Good luck this weekend.
Hey, anytime, I'm here for you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Greg Wrubell, voice of Brigham Young Athletics on BYU Notre Dame, which is an interesting, nice, juicy little non-conference game.
Oh,